Welcome to the video solution of the class activity Hornets Nest. In this activity, we will take an Excel workbook and create a VBA macro. We will accomplish this activity in 3 parts. In part 1, we will count the number of hornets found in the provided spreadsheet and produce a message box that displays the count. In part 2, we will update our script to change each occurrence of hornets to bugs. Finally, in part 3, we will update our script to decrement an allotted amount of bugs and bees and replace the hornets with them respectively. If we run out of bugs and bees, we will produce a message box saying, "Oh no, we still have hornets." We will start by opening our Excel workbook. We can see in cells A1 through G6 that we have a table of bugs, bees, and hornets. We also see that in L1 and R1, we have a number representing the number of bugs and bees available for part 3. To start, we will create a copy of this tab because our macro in parts 2 and 3 will change our data and it will not be reversible. Right-click on Sheet 1 and select Move or Copy. Now we will select Move to End and check the box to create a copy. We will repeat this process a second time, which should result in 3 tabs. Let's go back to the first tab, enter Visual Basic by going to Developer tab and selecting Visual Basic. Let's insert a new module to create our macro. We will create our macro by typing sub hornets nest open close parentheses. When we hit enter, Visual Basic should create an end sub to close the subroutine. If Visual Basic does not do this, be sure to type end sub. Next, we will create our counter variable hornets count to hold the number of hornets counted. We will do this by typing dim hornets count as integer. Now we will set the initial value of our counter with hornets count equals 0. To loop through all the rows in our table, we will create a loop using for I equals 126, followed by next I to iterate through all 6 rows. Now, for each row, we will loop through all of the columns in our table using for j equals 127, followed by next j to iterate through all 7 columns. As we loop through the columns and rows, we will use our I row value and j column value to check if a cell's value is equal to hornets. To do this, we will create a conditional statement checking if cells I, j dot value is equal to hornets. If this is true, we will add 1 to our counter using hornets count equals hornets count plus 1, finished with an end if statement as required by Visual Basic. Finally, outside of our for loops, we will create a message box that states the count of hornets found by typing msg box hornets count, then the and symbol to concatenate the string hornets found. Now, let's go back to Excel and test our macro on the first tab. We will click on Macros and run the Hornets Nest macro. We see that we return a message box that states 13 hornets found. Now, let's return to Visual Basic to complete Part 2. Part 2 asks us to replace every instance of hornets with bugs. To do this, after incrementing our counter, we will add the line of code cells I, j dot value equals bugs. Therefore, if the cell's value was hornets and we added 1 to our counter, we then overwrite the value to the string bugs. Let's go back to Excel and test our macro on the second tab. We'll click on Macros and run the Hornets Nest macro. We see that we return a message box that states still 13 hornets were found. However, after we click OK, we see that all of the hornets were replaced with bugs, leaving us with only bugs and bees. Now we will return to Visual Basic to complete Part 3. Part 3 asks us to decrement from an allotted amount of bugs and bees as we replace each hornet with a bug or bee. To do this, we need to create two new counter variables, bugs count and bees count. We will do this by typing dim bugs count as integer and dim bees count as integer. Then we will set those counters to their respective values with bugs count equals range L2.value and bees count equals range R2.value. Now, within our loops, after counting the occurrence of each hornet, we will also check if we have any bugs available. If this is true, only then will we replace hornets with bugs. To do this, we will type if bugs count greater than 0, then cells I, j dot value equals bugs, end if. We will indent our cells statement to identify which if statement it falls within. Additionally, if we replace hornets with bugs, we need to decrement our bugs counter. To do this, we will type bugs count equals bugs count minus 1. Within our loops, if our bugs counter is 0, then we will also check if we have any bees available. If this is true, then we will replace hornets with bees. To do this, we will type else if bees count greater than 0, then cells I, j dot value equals bees. We will indent our cell statement to identify which if statement it falls within. If we replace hornets with bees, we will also need to decrement our bees counter. To do this, we will type bees count equals bees count minus 1. Finally, we will create a final conditional statement to notify us if the original number of bugs plus bees is less than the number of hornets counted. To do this, we will create a conditional statement checking if range L2.value plus range R2.value is less than hornets count. Then, if this is true, we will create a message box that says, "Oh no, we still have hornets," finished with an end if statement. Now, let's go back to Excel and test our macro on the third tab. Before we run our macro, we will update our bugs available to 5 so that we can test our message box when we still have hornets. We'll click on macros and run the hornets nest macro. We see that we return a message box that states 13 hornets were found. After we click OK, we see that we have a second message box that informs us that, oh no, we still have hornets. We can see that we have 3 hornets left in rows 5 and 6. And that concludes our video solution of the class activity Hornets Nest.